You are listening to The World Between Worlds, a Star Wars podcast where 4 film fans and Star Wars enthusiasts are going over the entire Star Wars chronology, including the Clone Wars, which we're in the middle of right now. This week, a little Anakin Padme action, and we go back to Geonosis, where the Republic makes a final stand to take back the planet from Poggle the Lesser and all those little buggies. My name is Yates.
My name is Keats. Oh, wait, I'm back, everyone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Keats is feeling better.
I had the worst strep throat, so I couldn't speak. I literally couldn't speak. So now I can actually speak.
Yeah,
were you completely cured?
I'm like 90%, 95% cured.
Bring out the tarot cards.
My name's Jessica.
My name is Jordan.
We're going to talk about Season 2, Episode 4, Senate Spy, Season 2, Episode 5, Landing at Point Rain, Season 2, Episode 6, Weapons Factory, Season 2, Episode 7, Legacy of Terra, Season 2, Episode 8, Brain Invaders. The most amount of episodes we've had to talk about at once. So
we're very sorry if this is like 2 hours.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for existing.
So to get right into it, we'll open with Senate Spy. This was a story where Anakin returns home from the war, and we start off the episode with a nice cute little Anakin Padme moment where Anakin and Padme are reunited.
Master Annie, what a delight to see you. I shall tell Mistress...
Anakin! That will be all, 3PO.
Are you sure, my lady?
Yes, 3PO.
Yep. They are in love, air quotes.
It felt like a more genuine and familiar type of love beat at the beginning where Anakin returns home. Padme has the moment where she says, "Oh, you called this home?" And he's like, "What else would I call it?" And he, swoon, oh my god. But yeah.
It's like you're married. Seriously?
Yeah.
The bar is that low? Wow.
It was our first time, I think, seeing Padme's like gigantic lounge area that we see in Revenge of the Sith. It's pretty.
I love it.
Yeah, that's a cool.
Coruscant makes me happy.
Coruscant makes me happy too. It's a very pretty place.
And we saw Star Wars pizza.
What?
Remember he comes with like
When
a
did that
pizza
happen?
box?
Oh my
yeah.
god.
He's like, I brought dinner.
He's like, oh my god.
How'd you
You
get
brought
that?
dinner?
You brought pizza and called this home?
Wow, you must really love me.
But the moment is cut short when it's revealed that the Jedi Council wants Padme for a super secret spy mission, which she initially is resistant to because it involves spying on an old friend and what looks to be an old flame from her past, who is a total scumbag, but we'll get into that later. In my opinion, I think this episode is a lot about sort of double identities and leading a double life, because that's very apparent, like from the very beginning. Once the bright and happy moment between them in the apartment is done, Anakin's called in for work. And Padme's like, "Do you have to do this?" And then Anakin's like, "Well, they've been calling me 7 times," which he should have just done that first. What a moron. Anyway, the next time they see each other is in the Senate chamber, where, like we've seen the entire first season and onward, means that all they can do is sort of share knowing looks at each other, and they have to lie about their relationship. I think a lot of the immediate tension in their relationship stems from that. And there's a lot of back and forth between Anakin and Padme in this episode, which honestly a lot of the episodes, like the Zilla Beast episode, they were back and forth. There's a lot of episodes where it's pretty clear that Anakin and Padme have lots of different ideas and lots of different and contrasting opinions on things. We see in this episode more than a lot of the other Star Wars content, like the cost of like the double life that they're leading.
Well, it wouldn't have to be that way. We could keep it a secret.
We'd be living a lie. One we couldn't keep even if we wanted to. I couldn't do that. Could you, Anakin? Could you live like that?
No. You're right. It would destroy us.
Yeah, that's what Anakin says right before he leaves, is that,
Like, duty's more important.
Duty's more important than us.
And then Padme, zinger, she throws that on him because when the council asks her to spy on Clovis and realizes that he's with the Seppies, she is like, duty first. Sorry, gotta pretend that I'm in love with him. See you around.
She roasts him.
Yeah, she does roast
I
him.
think she's doing that on purpose, though, because she's mad at him. Yeah, they're kind of clashing whenever we see them, and it feels like they haven't seen each other in like months whenever we see them together, and it always just immediately starts with a fight.
Not only are Anakin and Padme do they have to lie about their own relationship, but then they're going to have to double lie because Padme is sent on a mission and Anakin's sent to escort her, where they're also putting on a show for Rush Clovis. I'm not sure. He's a senator. I'm not sure if he represents the banking clan or if he represents his planet or whatever. Yes, he does. His planet of... I remember it because it sounds weird. Scipio.
Skippy.
And so Rush Clovis right off the bat, not...
He looks like Alec Baldwin.
yeah,
He's like a young, like he's just like so like, oh, I'm a hunk, but I'm really
Self-aware about it.
He's just so unappealing.
Yeah,
I was like, really, Padme?
Yeah.
This is who you go for?
Yeah, I had the same thought. Like, Padme went from this guy to Anakin, like, slight boost, but, like, really, like...
She's just really into, like, toxic masculinity.
Do you think she's like, I can change Clovis? Like, if I go in, like, I can change Clovis's heart to not be a scummy, like, insider trader for, you know, these mega corporations.
Well, she was, like, really surprised that he did that. So I wonder what... I would like to see, like, deleted scenes of... What they're really... I mean, isn't she like 15 when she meets Anakin? So...
Yeah, you mean like in Phantom Menace?
I think it goes in between her being 15 and then Anakin and her rekindling their relationship.
Yeah, maybe
Because
so.
Apex Windu said that they were in the same like political class together or something, and she wasn't
When
a
she became
senator
a senator.
when she was 15. She was just the queen.
So Anakin's put in a situation where Padme has to make moves on Clovis and, you know, act like she's falling in love with Clovis. And Anakin is very transparently, like, not down with this.
Oh, he's pissed.
Yeah, he's pissed.
He's pissed. Which, I mean, I feel like I would be pissed.
Sure, yeah.
Especially they're married.
Yeah, I mean, that's another consequence of the double life, right? Like, he can't go up to Mace Windu and say, oh, look, like, I can't do this mission because me and my wife aren't comfortable with doing that.
No, they could have still said, like, they still could have turned it down and talked about it and, like,
Right.
just given some excuse.
Right.
But, like,
but Padme uses it to her advantage.
Yeah,
that
she, like, wants to do it to punish him.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
Yeah, because he's trying to push her away from doing it, but that in turn just makes her want to do it even more.
She was angry with him to begin with because he
'Cause he
had to
ditched
work.
Senator Amidala,
General Skywalker, you finally found some time for me.
are you still mad about last night?
Why would I be mad? I'm not mad.
Good. Now tell me about your dealings with Senator Clovis.
So you're here on Jedi business. I already told Master Yoda. I don't want to spy on a colleague and an old friend.
Old friend. How well do you know Clovis?
Why does that matter?
Their whole thing is so screwy. Because first she was like, I have to type out my report. And he was like, your report's not important. You have, like, pizza and sex with me. And then she was like, oh, like, duty comes first. And then he gets called into work. And now he just leaves because duty comes first. So he's basically putting his job above hers.
Yeah.
And that's what starts the whole thing.
Well, yeah, because he's kind of feels controlling, where he's like trying to tell her like what to do and what not to do. Yeah. Like he's like, I'm not letting you do that.
Yeah.
And she completely rebuts that, like, right up front. She's like, you absolutely cannot tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And also, like, he says, like, he insinuates that he knows what she's feeling. But then she says, like, you're not allowed to read my mind. Like, get the fuck out of my mind.
He's like, I can sense you're angry. And she's like, you can't read my mind.
Yeah.
You don't know me.
Okay, so, you know, I think we pointed out some of the stuff that was problematic about the relationship in the episode. I mean, overall, though, I think that this was probably one of the stronger, like, romance stories that were focused on Anakin and Padme so far. I mean, out of, like, all the movies and all the episodes, like, this was definitely moments that felt, like, real to me in terms of, like, seeing what their relationship is actually like and, like, feeling close to that and understanding it.
Well, this is also, like, the first time we've ever had an episode dedicated to the relationship. That's the first thing I noticed when like they kissed for the first time. It was like, well, they haven't really had time to kiss besides like that one tease that we got from season 1. How many? If we could probably count on one hand how many times we've seen Padme and Anakin in the same room together.
Well, and this was also like I think the best Padme episode so far because this was like she's given the most
Bad
action.
Jedi.
But she's given the most action and
Bad Jedi.
that's the best Jar Jar episode. But this is the best. But like Padme is given substantially more to do in this. I think like Jar Jar was really the crux of Bad Jedi. Here she's like Anakin's more along for the ride, and Padme is the one calling all the shots, and she's the hero at the end of the day that steals the intel that allows the rest of the arc to happen.
Yeah, I mean, like, even though she's poisoned, she still, like, does everything she needs to do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, she gets poisoned. That's pretty fucked up.
One of the big problems, one of the big questions more so is that I had out of this episode was the scene with Anakin where he's being briefed on the situation by Mace Windu and Yoda, and I believe Obi-Wan as well. Anakin is like, oh, I didn't know Padme had a history with Rush. And then Yoda's like, yo, why would you know that? Are you guys together or something? He doesn't say that exactly.
It was Obi-Wan.
It was Obi-Wan?
Obi-Wan, like, gives, like, a look. He's like...
Does Obi-Wan know that they have a thing?
That's my question. Is it possible that all the Jedi are just being quiet about the whole thing, but everyone kind of already knows about Anakin and Padme?
That is a really good question because I wonder that like all the time. It's so obvious.
It's like so obvious.
I feel like they must suspect.
Yeah, or at least suspect.
And I think that like people are always like turning the other cheek towards Anakin. Just because they're like, we can't deal with this right now.
Right. Or like other characters too. I feel like because all the Jedi that we meet, they're all sort of have like different philosophies and way of applying like the Jedi teachings. And so I feel like a lot of them, it's a lot of just like kind of stay in your lane, like, but probably Yoda and Mace are like the overseers, you know, that are trying to like make sure no one's going too off course.
Right. That, I mean, I guess that would make more sense if, like, they were just like, yeah, he just has his own philosophy. And it's, like, the warrior philosophy of being a Jedi, which makes sense because, like, we're in wartime and he's gifted.
But they're keepers of the peace.
Yeah, but, like...
Not warriors.
Right now, they're just, like...
They're Jedi Knights.
No, they're masters.
There's so much.
Star Wars is
This
too
is
big.
too much. This podcast is too much. Boom! Bunch of ships come out of hyperspace. There's like 20 of them. And they're making a strategy on their attack on Geonosis because Poggle the Lesser, who's like the MacGuffin, I guess, of the whole thing, because the whole point of this is to capture him.
Sure.
And blow up the fortress.
Yeah.
The whole strategy is to attack the ray shield generator that Poggle the Lesser has around the droid factory. But then the plot never happens because another plot happens where they all get shot down because there's way too many Geonosians and way too many droids, and they all need to get back to one another because they're all separated.
Are you injured, General?
No, nothing too serious. What's the situation here?
We've got no air cover. 2 generals on the ground beyond our position, and a mess of bugs surrounding us. The enemy was more than prepared for our attacks, sir. They knew our every move.
Well, I'm sure General Skywalker and General Mundi will make it to our position. We just have to make sure we're still here when they arrive.
Obi-Wan's injured, Ki-Adi-Mudi's injured, Anakin's chilling.
And I believe this is the first time we actually see the point of view of a crashing gunship, because we constantly see gunships going into battle and then like crashing in midair. But this is the first time we ever actually see a character inside one of those ships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I loved it. I love all those shots. It reminds me of like Saving Private Ryan when they're like in the airplane and stuff, just like getting shot at. It's like it's so intense. It's so like close up. Like you feel so claustrophobic. You feel like right in the action with them.
And these episodes were more cinematic
because it's not like really plot or like dialogue driven. It's just looking cool and all about the shots.
Very sparse on dialogue, especially the first episode, Landing on Point Range. That's like, you know, it's probably like 10 exchanges of dialogue in 20 minutes, and then everything else is just all action.
It's all action, blaster fire.
In terms of like dialogue, the music, just the way this episode was shot and the colorization of it, this was the strongest feat that the whole arc had put together, in my opinion. I know you said the shot of of everyone running. Or no, you said
the tracking shot.
Yeah, the tracking shot of everyone
running, and like it reminded me of like a video game. Kind of.
Mm-hmm. I just think in general, like, at this point, we've watched so many like war-centric episodes, and we talked about it at the end of season 1 when we did the recap. Like we're done with this, but you know,
it gets to a point where it's so mediocre.
It's so overdone.
Yeah, but this was across the board, like they aced it. You know, the action was great, and the storytelling was very simple, but very propulsive and good, and keeping us engaged. Like you guys were talking about that long shot. When I was watching it, I was like ready for the episode to end. I was like, man, all the action so far was good. Like I got everything I needed out of this episode. And then they go into another briefing room and have to come up with another plan. I was like, God, I can't believe this is still going on.
Right.
And then when they showed the long shot, I was like 100% back in. I was like, this is awesome. Star Wars is great.
Yeah. Very D&D, right? Like how you just have to solve so many problems, and it gets so like, all right, enough of this.
Yes.
But then like something breaks through, and it's like very exciting. It's immersive. Even though it's fantasy, it's like realistic. Obi-Wan was like down for the count. He was just like, quip. Must get out my quip.
Before they actually go into Geonosis airspace, Obi-Wan is talking to Cody when he's getting into his ship. And he's kind of like, so Cody, were you on the first invasion of Geonosis? And he's like, no, sir, I wasn't. And then he's talking about it from a very narrow-minded, subjective point of view of like, oh, it was the day I was attacked by 3 monsters. And he's like, sounds like fun. But in reality, it's like the day like 100 Jedi died. And that's like not the first thing that he thinks of. And I thought that was like really selfish and interesting.
Wait, for who?
Quip.
Obi-Wan.
Oh, Obi-Wan says
Yeah, he's
that.
more concerned with his quips than the lives of hundreds of Jedi.
I didn't catch that.
I laughed at that line because I thought it was funny. Because Cody was like, oh, sounds entertaining, sir. And he's like, yeah, it was for the Geonosians. And then the door closes and then he like goes into battle. I thought that was funny, but yeah, you bring a great point. I did not think of that. Yeah, Obi-Wan is just kind of an asshole at times. Right, I mean, yeah, like in most war films, because I like war movies, it's always like you're in these harsh environments and these harsh times, and everyone's just so stressed, and the way they go about it is just making jokes throughout the entire battle. It just felt very realistic.
It's the best way to engage the audience and personify them, because it's like the most harshest death everywhere.
I read a good book about the Vietnam War called The Things They Carried. And that was like a big thing in the book, was how like soldiers are always using humor to cope.
Yeah.
And like things just basically like everything is so traumatizing and like every day you wake up and you're going to be traumatized again, that like you just joke about the most terrible things.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into this episode with Anakin and Ahsoka kind of like turning war into a game with their kill count.
You're late. Sorry, Master. Ahsoka and I were busy routing the Seppies near Doran.
My squadron alone had 55 kills.
Yeah, but mine had 76.
Show off.
Well, I'm glad you two are enjoying yourselves. Hey, it's just a little friendly competition, Master. Nothing to worry about. What I worry about is the way this war seems to be drawing out, with no end in sight.
Bingo, bango.
Bingo, bango. And then it's also like, are you more of an Obi-Wan or are you more of an Anakin when it comes to simplifying these things in terms of...
So you're saying Obi-Wan simplifies it in a different way? Like
No, I'm saying he can't simplify it because it's too dramatic for him to handle.
Well, first they have to destroy the ray shield generator, which they do, and then they destroy the factory in the next episode. And Obi-Wan and Ki-Adi-Mundi are injured, and then Luminara and Barriss Offee come. This is our introduction to Barriss Offee.
Yep, another like rando. She was in one shot of Attack of the Clones, but she had a big life in the books and the comics, and here she is as
Padawan learner.
She looks really cool.
Yeah, I like her design a lot too.
I love her design. I love her clothes and how it's like almost like reminded me of like just like very conservative dress.
Yeah.
Which is, I actually wrote that in my notes. Luminar and Barriss Offee look too elegant for war. Like they just like seem out of place. Like when they come off the ship, I'm just like, what are you guys doing here? This place is so dirty.
They look like princesses.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
they look amazing.
They do. They're it's Star Wars. I'll fucking deal. Like
Yeah.
Why does Darth Vader fight in a cape? Like no reason. Just he has one. You know.
So Barriss and Ahsoka meet for the first time, and they have to go into the catacombs underneath the factory because they can't just storm the factory because it's heavily fortified. And Barriss has memorized all of the catacombs. It's very confusing.
What was it, like 200 paths? 200
Something like that.
Yeah, I love that Barriss was like a total nerd. Like, just like because Ahsoka and Anakin would never do that.
They usually have either Obi-Wan or whatever third-party Jedis accompanying them to be like the book-smart person of the group. So this is like the opportunity to have a different book-smart character.
Do you think Anakin was kind of like embarrassed of Ahsoka or something? Like maybe they were both a little embarrassed of each other because
I don't really get that. It kind of came out of nowhere.
My briefings might go better if you didn't interrupt me every time I tried to...
I wasn't interrupting. I was trying to help you.
Which I would appreciate if you didn't interrupt me to do it. I just think maybe you don't trust me to give the briefing.
It's not about trust. It's about getting the job done right.
So you don't trust me to get the job done right. I knew it.
Snips, I never said...
No, it's okay. I understand.
Well, I also think like a lot of the times they just kind of find something to happen so that an arc can happen, and they'll repeat arcs. But yeah, in this case, it was like Anakin and Ahsoka were kind of like embarrassed of each other because they were always stepping on each other, and that's sort of what they have to get over by the end of the episode.
Anakin was like, "Oh, Ahsoka's not prepared because I didn't prepare her."
Yeah, exactly. And then she's like, "No, I am prepared because I'm good at what I do."
Yeah.
Just look at my resume.
Because she's feisty. She has spirit. But it was really nice how Ahsoka, just the way she interacted with Barriss. They were like good.
They were very polite
friends.
to each other.
There was no like competition there.
I thought that it could have gone that way because
Yeah.
Ahsoka's oftentimes that way around other people, like sort of confrontational or like always stepping on them. But yeah, this was like,
They worked together well.
Yeah, Barriss at one point was like, "Oh, let me take the lead because I'm the one who knows everything." And then Ahsoka was like, "Okay, yeah, you're right. You're kind of right."
But they both had like their strengths.
It did kind of feel like at first Barriss was like trying to like lead the mission, but then it got to a point where like all the studying couldn't help her.
Right, exactly.
So Ahsoka gets to step in for the improvisation.
I think she was just letting her self-doubt get to the better of her.
Well, if you're so focused on like preparation, then sometimes when you have to think on your feet, you're like, "But what about my preparation?
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't prepare for this." And I think that's what happened with her.
I guess this is the point where we get to talk about their sacrifice.
The bugs took the bombs.
What are we gonna do now?
I don't know what to do without the bombs.
Well, this tank could destroy the power generator, and probably us along with it.
I guess that's our only choice.
Master, can you hear me?
Master!
Set off the bombs! We're trapped!
I'm sorry, Master. We can't make it out.
Can't make it out. Ahsoka, wait!
Fire.
It was very heroic how Ahsoka and Barriss were both like ready to die. They're like, "Okay, we're gonna die," but then they do it anyways, and they don't like overthink it. They just like they kill themselves, but they obviously don't end up dead.
Right.
But then, of course, Luminara was like immediately ready to give up.
Master Luminara, don't worry.
Be at ease, Skywalker.
At ease? We need to act now! Ahsoka and Barriss may still be alive down there.
There's not enough time. I sense them drifting away.
No, we'll get them out.
I really like her character, but it was like too much the Jedi training.
I think that was like another point that you were talking about earlier, how like her focusing so much on like memorizing and strategy got in the way, because their strategy was to blow up the thing with the bombs, but then when they lost the bomb, she's like, "I don't know how to like, what do I do now?" But they're literally sitting in a giant tank that has like a giant cannon on it. I'm like, you just blow it up with the tank you're in. But she had no idea because she was so focused on the set plan that she had before. She didn't know how to adapt.
But also the consequences of that means the chance of them both dying there. So that was another element to it too. And I think
But it was a super tank that nothing could explode.
But I think you're right that Luminara, she also just she's like back on the teachings instead of being like, well, let's like search for them first before just giving them up for dead.
Yeah, I feel like Luminara is too much of like the ultimate rule-following Jedi. Like I felt this way about her for the Cloak of Darkness episode with her in it, where it's just like she's too like aware of the Jedi code, and she's like there's like no leeway with her. Like it's just all
at the same time, the appeal of the Jedi is like, in like a high stakes scenario where lives are on the line, the Jedi are selfless and they will always go like the selfless route, or at least those are the teachings. And you'll watch Anakin and Ahsoka diverge from that. So like, I mean, I think the appeal of the Jedi and, you know, why that they are incorporated, like, even into the government and stuff is just like, you know, we have to have these people that we can always trust to do the right thing regardless of whether their lives are on the line. So, like, you know, if you were in a clone in the similar situation, maybe a clone wouldn't do that. Or maybe they would, depending on their personality. But you know, the Jedi is, like, you know, always the person to lay down their life if they need to.
No, yeah, I totally agree with everything you're saying. I just think that the fact that she's, like, so perfect of a Jedi makes her hard to identify with as a character. The fact that she's, like, so like willing to throw away all of her emotions for the sake of being the perfect Jedi just doesn't. It's not a good character for me. I like the whole struggle aspect of things.
I think just like whoever you surround yourself kind of helps morph you into like who you're gonna be. Because I mean, Ahsoka would be completely different if like Luminara was her master. But she's stuck with Anakin, so that's why she's like that.
And I think it's clear Ahsoka does have respect for Luminara, even like the Cloak of Darkness episode. And Luminara has respect for Anakin too in her own way. Although she's also critical of him, she's like, you know, you have a unique way of thinking about things, and I appreciate that about you, which is sometimes really hard for a person that's really book smart to do. But you know, in the situation where her apprentice's life might have been forfeit, she sticks to standard Jedi moral code and is just like, well, this is where she had to go.
I think one of like the good things about the Jedi is that there's many different philosophies within it and many different paths, and like all of the Jedi have like a collegial respect for each other where they like learn from each other's different ways. But I also think that in the end of this episode, Luminara, it's like you kind of start to see Luminara feeling like, is this okay? Like, or is this like too much of a divergence?
I think the war is just making everything so blurry.
Yeah.
And no one really knows what anything is anymore.
Sure. So yeah, maybe Luminara and Anakin's philosophies hadn't been tested as hard as they would have before the war, where now they're in constant life or death scenarios, where before.
I think it ends with Luminara being like, would you be okay with letting would you be okay with letting go of your Jedi, of your Padawan? And then it ends.
Right, yeah, that's right, because they're saved, and then Anakin's like, haha, in your face, I was right, and then Luminara's like, okay, like, this is good, but like,
I was prepared to let her go.
Yeah, I was prepared to, yeah, I mean, and
I was prepared to let her go immediately.
Yeah, but, you know, to be fair, like, I mean, with Anakin specifically, like, you know, asking, like, you know, what would you have done, like, if Ahsoka wasn't there, like, it's a very good question, because Anakin probably would not have been able to cope with her loss, like, if she was there. So he's, like, on a one-track mind where, like, Ahsoka can't die because she just won't. And
he's very fragile.
Yeah.
He's very, like, his current way is, like, hanging on like a thread.
So they successfully destroy the factory, and Paga the Lesser gets away though.
And so Luminara and one of her clones go off to search for Paga the Lesser. They have tracked his whereabouts from a little cargo container. They have pretty much an exact location figured out. Luminara's like, all right, checks in with her comm. Yo, Obi-Wan, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Anakin, Ahsoka, I know where they are right now. I have to go get him before it's too late and we lose him. She wants to prove herself, and she goes after without really the approval of the rest of the Jedi that she's accompanied by. And then, of course, she goes missing immediately, and so they end up at the same lair that Luminara was looking for. And so once they reach there, they're like, this place looks very different from the standard Geonosis architecture. And so they notice immediately there's like a crest on the wall somewhere.
Luminara's lightsaber.
Poggle didn't do this. But maybe that did.
That is one ugly bug.
I haven't seen one that looks like that before.
I don't believe anyone has. It could be the Geonosian queen.
The bugs have a queen?
Rumored. But we haven't found any proof of her existence.
Until now.
Oh, they do find the dead clone.
Spooky stuff.
Spooky stuff.
Yeah, the crest of the queen.
Yeah, it's like an urban legend for Geonosis that it's like a rumor about the queen.
Okay, that was the question I had. Is the whole planet bugs?
Yeah, so, I mean...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing I wanted to talk about in this episode was, like, the culture and, like, how Geonosis works.
The culture? Isn't this kind of like an underground culture?
Well, like that it's a hive mind, like what the fact that they have zombies The fact that they build the droids, the fact that the droids look like them.
But isn't this supposed to be like an isolated section of Geonosis? This isn't all of Geonosis.
I think she's the queen of the whole planet, and she lives there. I think that's like the secret. That's everything.
I don't think so, because it's not like she has like those worm things through every Geonosian.
I think because Poggle's name is Poggle the Lesser, he is underneath the queen. And the fact that they said no one knows who the queen is, and the fact that there's a clear analogy to real-life insects and how they organize their society, that the queen is the queen of the entire planet. And all of the workers are like drones, essentially, just like worker bees, and they follow all the commands that the queen wants. And she says in her evil monologue that, you know, she's the lord over everything and that everything is her children.
But everybody says that when they're the king or the queen. I am in charge of everything.
Yeah, and Obi-Wan even says back to her, like, that's not true. Like, and I'm pretty sure he's referring to, like, that's not how Geonosis operates anymore.
I was wondering if it was something how, like, on Naboo, they have human people, and then they have, like, the...
Oh, like two different species living simultaneously.
Exactly, and they, like, live underwater and stuff.
I'm wondering if she even knows that, like, Poggle the Lesser is, like, working with the Separatists.
That's possible.
She might not.
Because I don't think she knows.
I would think that she's, like he's taking her orders.
Yeah, like she has like the plan. The specifics aren't important to her. The only thing she cares about is like the hive. Right. And then, but to Poggle the Lesser, he's a little businessman. He's got the checks and balances. Exactly. And he goes, oh, you know, in order to get what we need done, we need to work with the Separatists.
Poggle the Lesser is the one actually pulling the strings, and he's like, just here, sign this, and everything will be okay. And she's like, okay. Yeah, I don't think she has like any outside knowledge outside of her world.
I agree, but I think culturally the difference is that their culture is different than what we understand as humans because they're insects, and that even though while she doesn't understand the rest of the world, she doesn't need to as the queen. She is the ruler, and she does have like the control over all of them, but like the specifics aren't important to her. It's just not important to her.
She just keeps giving birth.
Yeah, that's all she does. She just keeps everything running, and that's why, you know, they're such good manufacturers, because they're supposed to be, you know, bugs, worker ants, bees, you know, all they do is work, and that's all they care about.
I thought it was kind of a good scene when Obi-Wan was like, "You will submit to the Republic law," and she
responds pretty savagely.
She could not handle that at all. But I didn't get what you guys are getting about. I figured that everything was her idea.
Mm-hmm. And it could be.
What is everything?
Like the whole plans.
Working with the Seppies?
Working with the Seppies.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that either. But now that he brings that up, I'm like, that's definitely like a possibility.
But like the extra part of this episode, that, you know, the zombie part, is that like, you know, obviously the drone workers have like a specific lifespan and they die, and culturally, like, working is like the most important thing, and the queen is like, the greatest power is like, my workers, when they die, they keep on working and they work for me.
You not dictate to me, Jedi. My empire is forever.
That was a great character moment between Anakin and Obi-Wan when they realized this. Obi-Wan realizes, oh wow, these aren't alive creatures. They've been brought back from the dead. And then Anakin's like, are you seriously pitching me that these creatures are zombies? And then Obi-Wan's like, well, let's just table that for right now. They're zombies for right now, okay?
And then to transition into the next episode, like when the worm comes along, Anakin's just like, brute force, like, you can study my boot. And Obi-Wan turns out to be like totally right, and being his little nerdy self and being like, we should study this. Because then in the next episode, that's exactly what they needed to do.
So once they destroy the queen and her base, they make it out with Luminara. Everyone's safe except for all of the clones, of course, because they always die. And then it's, you know, next episode starts, and there's a couple of troops, and they're recovering from the battle that they just won. Ginormous victory for them. Some of those people died, and they need to take a moment to mourn those troopers. And how do they do that? They take a little nappy nap. And one of those little nappy naps leads to a little zappy zap in the brain when the worm goes up the nose.
Keep up at the nose.
Up at the nose, and then takes control of their minds. his voice suddenly drops like 30 pitches. He's a total Chad at this point. So the one with the worm in its nose, he has like
he knows.
He has like 12 extra eggs on him, and he like poisons like the rest of the batch that's been sleeping. The rest of the troops get infected, and Ahsoka and Barriss are having a really interesting conversation simply about how their masters operate.
Barriss was like, "Oh yeah, because we're Jedis, we're peacekeepers."
Yeah, she was questioning like, "What are we?"
And
Right.
Ahsoka was like, "No, we're not. We're warriors." And that's
Warriors
the
to keep
complete
peace.
opposite, though. It's kind of like what King Julian was saying.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about what you said earlier, about enjoying the peace while it lasts.
As a Jedi, I'm not sure I know how to do that.
Master Windu has said we are keepers of the peace, not warriors. However, once the war is over, it will be our job to maintain the peace.
Yes, but will we do so as keepers of the peace or warriors? And what's the difference?
I don't have all the answers, Ahsoka. Like you, I'm a learner. What does your master tell you?
Anakin?
Oh, you might find some of his thoughts on the future, a bit radical.
Barriss is like, by pointing out that inconsistency, it definitely shows she's like book smart, but she's also, to me that says she's like really intuitive and is like, Ahsoka is so caught up in this action that she doesn't even stop to really think about those questions. But meanwhile, Barriss is here and she's like a real thinker and like, like a insular person maybe. But she's like, she's thinking about the big picture and what happens after the war.
Right, what happens after. And you can tell with the way that Ahsoka, like, she couldn't even sleep. She's like, I can't sleep. I can't relax.
Which
There's
is
no
telling.
action.
It's telling because this is really, and we talked about it before, I think it's the only episode where really there isn't a battle. One of the only episodes where, like, they're just there and, like, I don't even think we've seen any of the Jedi sleep. It's just like, there's no...
We've seen them get, like, knocked unconscious, but that's the closest thing.
This is the most casual we've ever seen any of the Jedi.
Could you imagine Anakin relaxing alone? No. I can only imagine him relaxing with Padme.
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan, I mean, that guy knows how to chill. Like, Obi-Wan is like with the Chardonnay,
no, with the
classical
tea.
music.
Remember
like,
with the tea? When he has like tea with the one general guy, the admiral guy?
Yeah, from the movie?
He knows how to chill.
Well, and he knows how to drink too. Like, it was at the Attack of the Clones, like, where are you going, Master?
For a drink.
But yeah, I think that, and it's weird their moment where Ahsoka's like, "Oh, my dad's like a weird person,"
Yeah, because Barriss
He's
is like
very unconventional.
I didn't think about this, but in that moment, Barriss is like, what does Anakin think about all this? Because maybe she's not satisfied with whatever Luminara's answer is, Because if she asks Luminara, like, what happens after the war, and she gets a bad answer, like, next thing you want to go to...
Well, she says what the answer is. She says that they're going to be the peacekeepers.
I think more than anything, she's like concerned.
Mm-hmm.
She's just like, oh, like, you think this? That's really weird. Like, you should talk to your master about it and get guidance. If anything, Ahsoka's like the more...
At-risk teenager.
Trouble?
Yeah, she's an at-risk teen.
Yeah.
Her dad's feeding her all this political nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, well, and she says...
Yeah, she says that Anakin's a radical.
He's a fascist.
Yeah,
and
Anakin's a super fascist.
Yeah, so, like, what presumably Luminara is saying is the army's going to be disbanded, and all that's going to end. And then presumably what Anakin is saying is, we're going to keep the army, we're going to occupy these planets because that's the only way that they can be safe.
Right.
That's got to be where Anakin's mind is at. Especially for Ahsoka to, like, know not to talk about it around other people.
Well, and Anakin is very cynical.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't think he thinks that the war will come to an end.
Sure.
He's just like, oh, perfect. Infinity War.
It never ends. But Anakin... But I could also see it being the case where Anakin, the only way he knows how to protect something, it's not by saving what you love, it's by, strangle holding it into submission to make sure that it's safe.
Anakin's screwed.
Anakin is screwed.
He was screwed from the beginning.
Yeah, he was screwed.
I think everyone's screwed. Like, Anakin's screwed just because he's, like, psycho. But Barriss and Ahsoka are screwed because they're just growing up in a war. Like, they're kids.
Yeah.
And this is, like, all they know. And, like, they're literally questioning, like, this is all I know. When this ends, what are we going to be? Like, are we still going to be warriors? Are we going to be peacekeepers? Like, what's going to happen to us?
Yeah.
I feel bad. I literally feel bad for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel bad for, like, I want to talk. Never mind. Cut it.
Well, that was good.
George's getting sad. He doesn't want to be sad.
I don't want to be sad. I was like, just like the thought of like Ahsoka killing like organics just makes me very sad, because in the second episode we see like Anakin like slice a couple of like Geonosians, and I'm like, I can't picture like Ahsoka doing this, but like I'm sure she had to. It's different when she's like slicing droids and stuff, but just like the fact that like she's a child and she's like forced to kill already, it's pretty intense.
To her, it's not even real. It's a game.
Yeah.
It's like how many,
Well, she's like forced to like make it a game.
Yeah.
Because that's like, I guess, her
'Cause that's
coping
a coping
mechanism.
It's like the Jedi are brainwashing children. Yeah.
That is literally what
That's
they
not the
do.
Jedi. That is the Jedi way.
That
That's
is
not
the
the
Jedi
way of
way.
life, though.
But we don't want
way
to
of
kill
life
giant
is
lizards.
King Julian.
I would totally join King Julian's tribe.
Yeah, me too.
So let's move on for the episode.
King Julian made a huge
I want to talk
impact
about.
on us.
I want to give you the platform for a second, Jessica, to discuss
Ooh.
how much this episode feels like a Star Trek episode.
Please, Spock, do me a favor. And don't say it's fascinating. No. But it is interesting.
Yeah, this is a Star Trek episode.
This is a Star Trek episode.
Because they're running around in a ship.
They're running around in a
Like,
ship.
it literally looks like Star Trek, and this is like such a common plot device in Star Trek.
It's all internal
Which is
affair.
just like, yeah, like, oh, there's a strange thing, and we have to figure it out. What makes this Star Wars instead of Star Trek is that you would never see Captain Picard just like solve the problem by torture like whoever's on the ship to like get the answer.
Sure.
They would come up with like some scientific solution through like teamwork, like using their minds basically in cooperation. They would find the answer. But not saying that that's like a bad thing about Star Wars, because if anything, it's much more like character and plot driven.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Star Wars is so much, or Star Trek is so much more like episodic and more about like an overarching like philosophy of like science and stuff like that. This is much more of like, I really like this episode because of that Star Trek theme, but also because of how they made it like a Star Wars episode with all the foreshadowing with Anakin, and they played like the Imperial March when he like used his like his strangulation thing. Ooh, he's kinky. He likes to strangle people.
And I definitely want to see more like Star Trek episodes in Star Wars.
'cause they're good.
The bottle episodes. Yeah.
I mean, I
They're
think
good.
a lot of season one was like a lot of it did remind me of Star Trek, and the prequels in general.
It did remind me of Star Trek, but it was so samey for a lot of the episodes.
Some of them were
I
so-
wanted.
It was too much like fighting.
Well, so one that comes to mind would be like the one on the snow planet where like they have to like come to a peaceful solution with the indigenous people.
But we even said like on that episode that was the only episode that felt like that, where it was the Jedi taking a step back for the episode while still having a presence.
Well, yeah, but in regards to it being Star Trek, I don't know. I think like the whole in the original trilogy, it's definitely very different from Star Trek. But I think the prequel trilogy, there's a little bit more of a Star Trek-y setup, because I think the Jedi are kind of supposed to be like the United Federation of Planets, just in terms of function.
Yeah, it's definitely like
They are, but they're so primitive.
Yes, it's very different.
Yeah, maybe like after, like in the next episodes, like
It's more about like the sentiment than the actual structure of it.
it's too
like,
corrupt. So, I mean, hopefully that's the direction that they end up going.
yeah.
in.
That's what makes up Star Trek is zero corruption.
Yeah.
Is like never. You're never like thinking in the back of your head that there's like some ulterior motive for Picard's decision or something.
Well, and it's always like the struggle, like the struggle to stick to your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
If
That's true.
anything, like I don't feel like Star Wars is the struggle to stick to your beliefs. Star Wars is like the struggle to like get back to a belief.
So one thing I want to talk about was about what they found the antidote was to the infection, which is just turning the AC on to the cold temperature. Is this a trope? Because I feel like I've seen this in other things.
Yeah, I thought I thought the same thing, but I couldn't think of what it was. But it's definitely a trope.
I've seen this in... the first thing I thought of was the Community episode where it was a parody of zombie episode.
Oh, yeah, and they turn the AC down, and
down.
all the zombies are frozen, and they go back to normal.
Yeah, exactly. And that's obviously a parody of other zombie things that exist already.
Well, I don't think it's a trope for zombies, but I like the idea of, like, you know, all you have to do is just... they'll freeze in the cold. Like
it kills the bacteria.
Yeah.
That's like the one logical pin in it.
No, it's all about it looks cool.
That is absolutely correct. You're ding, 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 ding. Yeah, it did look cool, and you know.
Yeah, all the ice effects looked cool. I really like the detail of the
super cool.
The air being frozen when they're
and I like
breathing.
when they were cuddling each other.
One thing, I mean, because Barriss and Ahsoka is a very popular fan pairing, from my understanding. In terms of like Clone Wars fan pairings, I think that's
like romantically.
Yes.
Barriss and Ahsoka.
Yes, and I think I remember reading somewhere an interview with a writer for the episode.
At first.
Huh?
I thought you were joking.
The
at
nerds
first.
must be stopped. They must be stopped, and they must be stopped swiftly.
I think I remember reading that the writer of the episode kind of wrote them as a pair in Brain Invaders. I'd read that beforehand, and I haven't seen this episode in a long time.
That's
so
cool.
so I liked the like Ahsoka like being restless like that as like the setup for like the whole episode, and then she's like,
"Let's go,
Barriss, are you up?" And then Barriss is like, "Yes, I'm still up. Let's go eat." Yeah. Well, I love
Ahsoka's a lesbian.
Maybe
she's not. She has a crush on that one senator kid. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe she's
Don't
bisexual.
spoil things, Jordan.
She is bisexual.
Canon.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway.
Obi-Wan's definitely.
Kit Fisto comes to the rescue and rescues Ahsoka and Barriss, who are lying there unconscious. And then you cut to Ahsoka's point of view from her in the hospital bed. And I thought this was an interesting moment because she kind of looks to her left and she sees Barriss. And then that's kind of it for her, because she's still unconscious. But
yeah, I wanted a final send-off with Barriss, especially since she was mind-controlled at the end.
This was the weirdest ending we've had to an episode so far.
But I really liked the ending in general.
I thought it was weird, because it didn't, like, there's no, like, musical cue or anything. It just, like, it's so sudden.
Oh, well, I'm just talking about the actual content of the ending, not the final cut.
I feel like the whole point of the ending
it didn't feel finished.
Was just, she just wanted to make sure that Barriss was okay.
Yeah.
And then once she was okay, like realized she was okay, she was like, all right.
Wait, hang on. We skipped over like the most important thing. After Barriss is like attacking her, like Barriss is like, kill me.
Yeah.
And then Ahsoka like it really considers it for a minute because she's not sure what to do. And then she manages to successfully aim and kill the worm instead. But that's
which was so cool.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of hinted that earlier back in the vents where Barriss is like, hey, if the moment comes, you'll do the right thing, right? And then Ahsoka's like, oh, sure. And then kind of moves on, but she doesn't even think to say the same thing to her because she's so certain she doesn't want to die.
Barriss is like very quick to just be like, all right, maybe I'll just die.
It seems like Barriss and Luminara have that in common.
Yeah.
Let's die as quickly as possible. So once we get into the hospital room, she sees Anakin, and immediately she's like scared that she's like dead or something. But, you know, she's okay. And Ahsoka has a heart-to-heart with Anakin about the decision that she made to not kill Barriss at her request, and how she ultimately did the right thing because Barriss didn't have any knowledge about any kind of antidote. I didn't even take the time to think about that, about like her mindset versus Ahsoka's mindset. But when you think about it, it all kind of like makes sense.
But Ahsoka also brings up the point, which I think we bring up every episode, which is like Ahsoka just like closed her eyes and hoped for the best, basically. But she says, you know, things worked out this time, but what about next time? Like, this isn't going to work out each time. And Anakin's just basically like, oh, don't worry about that.
He's the worst person to ask that to.
Yeah.
Because he literally will like betray the Republic and like fail the mission to save like anybody. Like that one episode where
he betrays everyone, the Jedi Order, for the turning into Darth Vader.
Spoilers.
But yeah, sure. No, like I was talking about when he like someone will like capture Ahsoka and be like, give me the plans or I'll kill Ahsoka, and he'll immediately just be like, okay, here. Just to save Ahsoka.
He's done that with Ahsoka, he did that with Padme.
Yeah, so he's the worst person to ask that question
he's
too.
the worst at hostage
But he's
situations.
like kind of the most human because he's the least Jedi.
It's interesting because it's like, do you, like as a viewer, are you more identifiable with a Jedi, or are you more identifiable with someone like Anakin, who's like someone who's very reckless and someone who's very not really aware about his own doings.
Well, that's kind of the thing in the original trilogy. Yeah, everyone wants to be a Jedi. Before, people only understood the Jedi as relatable because Luke was the Jedi character. But now that we have all these other characters, it's way more complicated.
That's what makes it a compelling story.
I know, and that's why we can do a whole podcast about it. Yeah.
Any final thoughts from anybody about this arc? I thought it was pretty solid.
Good.
Yeah, I thought it was like good. I don't think this was like any top tier quality stuff, but that camera work on episode 2 really stood out.
The best part was the foreshadowing for me.
With Anakin?
Yeah, with Anakin. And it ramped up a notch.
I agree with you. It was good. It wasn't top tier or anything, but I loved the second episode. It definitely was a standout, even though it was just kind of mindless action.
Yeah, I really liked
And
Senate
zombies was weird to me, though.
See, I liked Senate Spy and the first Geonosis episode and Brain Invaders. I thought those were all like really good episodes. I don't know. For me, this is just like season 2 is already off to a good start, and we've seen a lot of new stuff, new flavors in Star Wars, but also like significant improvement on the stuff from season 1 that we were getting tired of. Like,
no,
I
the
fact
totally
that we
agree.
all had such high praise for like a war-centric episode after saying, "Thank God, like we can move away from these war-centric episodes." I mean, I think it really speaks to the quality of the show.
Yeah, they finally executed it.
Yeah, in a really good way.
Yeah. One note I wrote for the Zillow Beast episode that I didn't get to say was like, we are so used to the same 2 episodes for Clone Wars now, and it's either a space battle episode or
ground battle
or rescuing an oppressed culture episode, and those are the only 2 episodes we've gotten from season 1. But we're getting a lot more variety here in season 2.
Yeah, we went from like Godzilla to like The Walking Dead. It's really weird, but I'm digging it.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely
to Mission
like
Impossible.
They do like all the sci-fi tropes.
Mm-hmm. And that just about wraps it up. So for next week, watch Season 2, Episode 9, Grievous Intrigue, Season 2, Episode 10, Deserter, and Season 2, Episode 11, Lightsaber Lost. If you'd like for an up-to-date schedule and other information regarding the podcast, you can like us on Facebook and Instagram. My name is Yates.
My name is Keats.
My name is Jessica.
Or my name is Jordan.
May the Force be with you.